Welcome to the Bottom Line Up Front, the show where we get to the bottom line of the most important issues around business and life. Today's guest is Mike Morawski. Mike Morawski is a 30-plus year real estate investment veteran. He has controlled over $285 million in real estate transaction. Mike is an entrepreneur, author, real estate trainer, public speaker, and personal coach with a strong personal resilience and deep desire to help others live an extraordinary life. He has coached hundreds of real estate investors to fulfill their dreams. Welcome to the show, Mike Morawski.
Hey, Terry, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it as well. So how's things been going your way? What's been going on here lately?
You and I were kind of talking before the show here for a minute about being Sunday, and we're working Sunday and working hard, and I guess that's the life of the entrepreneur, right? And
It
I,
sure
I think
is.
what we realize is that some people are willing to do things other people might not be so willing to do, and when you're really bouncing back or moving forward, you have to do some things that maybe be out of pocket for a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with that. So for me, I have kind of the mindset of every day is Monday. And when you believe that every day is Monday, every day is Monday. It doesn't really matter. You know, I was in a great conversation with someone the other day, and it reminds me of the old song, Everybody's Working for the Weekend.
Yeah.
And you always wait for like, thank God it's Friday. Oh my goodness. But when every day is Monday, it really kind of starts right there. And when every day is Monday, it doesn't matter what day it is. You're going to make it happen anyway.
Terry, Zig Ziglar used to say that if you spent every day of your work week working like it was the day before you were going to go on vacation, you'd get more done than you'd ever even realize.
I love it. You know, I read Zig Ziglar book, so that was kind of my first dive into personal development is reading Zig Ziglar. And oh my goodness, it was such a tough, very dry read. But looking back on it, it's like, my goodness, some of those techniques, some of those ideas, some of those things that Zig was talking about years ago are still just as relevant today as they were back then. I love it. I love Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one of my favorite is John Maxwell. So just before the conversation here, we was talking about John Maxwell, and I love John Maxwell. If I had to say who's my number one mentor, who have I received really the most value from over the years, I would say it's John Maxwell. And he has this very powerful quote: "If you want to change your life, you change your thinking, because by changing your thinking, you will change your life."
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I love John Maxwell. I've read probably all his books, and I think he's written close to 85
Mhm.
books, I think, right now.
I believe so.
And, um, I believe you have to change your life in order to change where you are, where you want to go, who you want to be. And one of the things I work with people on a lot is, hey, look, you can learn all this stuff professionally, but until you grow, until you become somebody different, you don't change professionally. We have to change personally in order to change professionally.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And that brings us to the bottom line up front. So here's the bottom line up front. If you want to win in business or life, you must have a set of core intentions that are the driving force in your daily actions. Here's the deal. Everything that you say and do is an extension of what begins right there within your mind. But you must, and I mean this, you must take intentional action every single day to achieve results, no matter how big, no matter how small, no matter how positive or negative.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, the big question is, what are your core intentions? And that's what we're going to get to in the bottom line up front today is core intentions. But before we dive into the bottom line up front, Mike, I want to kind of take a moment here to dive just a little bit deeper within your story, because you have an incredible story and I want to dive right on in. So go ahead and share us a little bit with us a little bit more about your story.
Sure. So I've been in real estate for 30 years. You kind of alluded to that in my bio. I started out as a real estate sales agent, Terry. I came into the business via somebody else who was in the business. So I was in the construction business and had grown a pretty big company. We were very successful, doing a lot of volume. And I woke up one morning and looked at my wife at the time and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm just burned out. I was wiped out. I was still banging nails. and working till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, doing all the entrepreneurial paperwork and that. Not much is different today, but I'm just saying back then I didn't have as much of a passion for what I was doing.
Mhm.
And I sold the company. I took a year off. Didn't know what we were going to do. But over that year, we house hacked a couple of two flats. And this is long before house hacking was sexy or
Mhm.
before it was the thing to do. Now it's kind of the way of the world, right? You live in a place, you remodel it, you sell it, you move on to the next place. And we did that a couple of times. But during that time, I met a real estate agent who was really, really successful. And I went to him and I said, "Hey, Todd, I'm thinking about going in real estate." And he really encouraged me. He said, "Mike, I think you'd be great at it. You got a
Mhm.
good work ethic. You're tenacious, you know." And it just was one of those conversations where he just encouraged me. Now, I've always believed success leaves clues. I heard Jim Rohn say years ago, "Success leaves clues. And if you want to be successful, go model other successful people." And I've done that a few times in my life. So I went to him and I said, "Hey, Todd, can I shadow you and your team?" And he said, "No." I was kind of like taken back at that point, right? But he said, "Look, I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to make you a cassette tape." Now, Terry, I'm really dating myself with this cassette tape thing because I don't know that we could find something today to make a cassette tape on.
Oh, I had an 8-track player in my car in high school. I get it.
Yeah, but we couldn't record 8 tracks. Remember? Cassettes were the first ones that came out we could record. But yeah, I had an 8-track player too. I remember those big things, right?
Yeah.
I remember at a garage sale saying, "Oh, I don't know if I should sell these or not."
I still have
Gladly.
a record player.
Yeah. Um, so anyhow, I went to him. He said, "No," he made me a cassette tape. And Terry, I listened to that over and over and over again. I absorbed it. I became a
Mhm.
sponge. I did everything he said on there. And my first 9 months in the real estate business, I went out and sold 78 houses. I
Mhm.
was Remax Rookie of the Year. I went on to build a team selling over 125 homes a year, all listings, and did that for about 9 years consecutively. 2005 rolled around, and I went, "Uh oh, what are we going to do now?" Because I saw the market starting to shift. And
Mhm.
Terry, I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen, but I knew something was going to happen.
Mhm.
So what I did was I had always wanted to be in the apartment business. Again, success leaves clues. I was in the construction business. I did a lot of work for two big syndicators in Chicago, and I understood the model of private equity. You raise private equity from individuals, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle, and as long as everything goes well, everybody does well. 2005, I syndicated my first apartment deal. It was a small 11 unit deal. I went on to raise $18 million dollars and bought $60 million dollars worth of real estate. It was 4,000 apartments in 5 markets, and I did that in 30 months.
Mhm.
Built a property management company managing 7,500 units. Had a lot of success, Terry.
Mhm.
Had a bunch of people working for us, great success, built a nice company. 2008 rolled around. It was like a freight train hitting a brick wall at 200 miles an hour. Terry, I remember sitting having lunch with my CFO, and the news happened to be on. And we were watching people carrying boxes out of Lehman Brothers by the dozens, not one or two people, dozens of people.
Right.
And I looked across the table and I said, "We're screwed, aren't we?" He said, "Yeah, we're in big freaking trouble." And I knew right then that my life was going to change, but I didn't know how. And I didn't know how much.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how much the lives of people around me were going to change either. So 2008 came around, all the capital markets started to shut down, things started to compress, uh, values dropped, occupancies dropped, cash flow dropped. I couldn't pay my bills anymore. I couldn't pay my investors anymore.
Mhm.
I had 38 different companies, some which were running very profitably, some that were not running so profitably. And I went and started moving money between companies. So
Mhm.
my profitable companies, I started to take capital from there and move it to non-profitable companies. At the auspice of what my attorney and accountant both said, they said, "Hey, listen, as long as you leave a paper trail and put the money back when the markets come back, you'll be fine."
Mhm.
In my infinite wisdom, I didn't know much. I had been involved in a couple recessions in the past, and I knew that recession would last 17 or 18 months.
Mhm.
And maybe have a 10 or a 12% correction. Not this thing. This was a perfect storm, right?
Yes.
7 or 8 years, 40% correction in the markets. What do you do as a business owner? What do you do?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people that are still affected today as a result of it.
Yeah, it was a big
So
year. I remember reading a lot about that. It was really a big year. I mean, I was deployed to Iraq at the time, but I remember, I remember reading about it, seeing a lot of things in the news, and it was pretty significant.
yeah, it was tough. What ultimately wound up happening, Terry, was I moved the money between companies. That went on for about 4 or 5 months. The markets didn't pop back, but I didn't tell my investors what I was doing. And because of non disclosure with my investors, I wound up being charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges.
Wow.
So, what had happened along the way was I grew way too fast. I tell people today, don't scale so fast. Go slow, go methodical, be patient. I was undercapitalized. I didn't raise enough money and I was over leveraged. I was 85% loan to value on $60 million worth of real estate, and you should be 65 to 75%.
Mm.
So, as a result of that, I got sentenced to 10 years in federal prison
Wow.
and went away, served about 7 years, 10 months in prison. Came home, had another 10 months on home confinement. Um, I, I could finish this little piece up right now, or we could, if you want to unpack anything.
Well, the first thing that really kind of comes to mind, because I know that it was a tough year, but like when I hear things like that right there, just the one big word that comes to mind is Ponzi scheme, and I don't really want to say Ponzi scheme, but was there labels of that, flavors of that, or was people misinterpreting it as that, or no?
You know what? The judge didn't want to hear it either because when I was
Mm,
at sentencing, the prosecutor brought it up and the judge looked at him and said, "You will not say that in this court again because we've
mm,
already proven the fact that it wasn't."
ah,
Terry, I never flew private. I didn't buy a big boat. I didn't have a big house. I
mhm,
didn't upgrade my cars. I drove a car, it had 280,000 miles on it. So, eh, you know, I tried to build a business. I tried to save all my investors. See, I wasn't the kind of guy that would go back to my investors and say, "Hey, we're in trouble. We
mhm,
made a mistake. The markets are bad." I wanted to fix it. I've been a fixer my whole
right,
life. You know what? I'm one of those guys, you tell me a problem and I come up with the solution.
right.
So um,
You
today
know
I
that
wouldn't.
That kind of reminds me, a lot of times when we're faced with problems, we're so kind of stuck in the weeds or dug in deep within the weeds that we often don't see what's going on around us. And sometimes it takes that little outside perspective to really kind of say, hey, here's what I see from my perspective. So, as a senior leader or as the leader of your team, your organization, the things that you were doing, did you really feel like you were just too far in the weeds, or you didn't have any outside perspective, or did somebody stand up and say, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" Or was you just dug in too deep?
Like I said, it's not illegal to move money between companies.
Mm-hmm.
But what was illegal was my non-disclosure to my investors. See, if I would
Mm,
have went to my investors and they would have signed off on it and said, but I didn't do that. And
got
I
it. I
didn't
understand.
really know that piece of it. Actually, Terry, I was on vacation in 2010. I
Mm-hmm.
came back from vacation and my partner handed me two business cards. Said, "Hey, you need to find a criminal attorney." I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I didn't. I had no idea that we were doing anything criminal. I knew we were in trouble, and I knew we were upside down, and I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. I remember being on vacation, sitting at this pool with my wife, going, "Man, I don't know. I don't know what's up,
Mm-hmm.
but we got some challenges."
Yeah, I know
So
non-disclosure agreements, they're really important. And sometimes there can be things neatly tucked away within non-disclosure agreements to where if you don't really read those in full or understand those things in full, you really kind of need to, dig into it a little bit deeper. So I have a few non-disclosure agreements that I've signed with partners that I do business with. And every time I always wanted to make it a point. I was like, hey, if this guy wrote something down that I didn't understand, or I just needed to read a little bit more between the lines or gain some clarity on, I definitely didn't hesitate to reach out. I was like, hey, can I get you to explain this just a little bit further? Or maybe we need to modify, tweak, or change this a little bit because I feel like you're trying to put this NDA within non-disclosure agreement within your benefit versus our benefit. So, reading those non-disclosure agreements, they're very important on both sides, both parties.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, very, very important. So
Hmm.
to know what you're getting into, or what your responsibilities are. For me, it was I needed to know more what my responsibilities were. And so
Right.
my attorney and accountant both said, "Hey, it's okay to move the money, leave a paper trail, but somebody should have said, 'Hey, are you telling your investors?'"
Mm.
So here's what happened. Here's what happened, right? I went to prison and I thought my life was over. I
Mm.
thought, I lost everything. Everything was broke down. I was this guy. I was uh, the neighborhood baseball coach, soccer coach, had a great marriage. My wife and I were best friends, home every night for dinner. Things were good. And all of a sudden I get ripped from that and I'm in a 12 by 12 room with three men I don't know, nor did I like,
Mm.
and I had three green outfits and five pairs of underpants. I mean, you went like that, your life changes. And that can happen to people. I want people to understand that can happen in an instant.
Hmm.
But you can also change your life from bad to good in an instant too. And I
Hmm.
really believe that's where some of this lies, right? So I'm in prison about 14 days, 17 days. And I think, how am I going to get through today, much less 10 years? How am I going to do? I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
Well, I get the phone call from my wife, and it wasn't a phone call. I called home and she said, I need to talk to you, and tells me she's going to divorce me. It
Mm. Wow.
wrecked me. It ruined my life. And now I was like, now I was like, how am I going to do this? So every day I walked around, it was tough. Thank God for a few guys around me that today are still really good friends of mine and really just kind of came to my aid and said, "Hey, man, we're going to lift you up. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this." I
Hmm.
didn't know how. They didn't know how, uh, but we did. But I walk in the gym one day, and mind you, I'm only window shopping. I'm not going to work out or anything, right? I'm just seeing what's going on. And I walk in the gym one day, I'm 35 pounds overweight, and I went from running marathons and working out to being 35 pounds overweight, not caring about myself, hating myself, wondering what happened. This guy walks over to me and he goes, "Hey, don't let those people beat you.
Mm.
All they want to do is take everything from you you've ever known. They
Hmm.
can take your companies, they can take your real estate, they can take your stuff, they can take your money, they can kill your family, but what they can't take is who you are and what you're made of.
Hmm.
What they can't take from you is what helped you build those successful companies." He goes, "Get it back. Get that 10 years back." He said, "Look, just start coming to my class every day. Make that commitment." Best advice anybody ever gave me, Terry.
Mm.
Make that commitment, come to my class every day, and will you'll start to see a difference. And I did. I started going to his class every day. I started losing weight. I started working out twice a day. I started feeling better. I got healthier. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I wrote two books. One's called Exit Plan, Your Complete Guide to Multifamily Investing and Why You Need an Exit Plan Before You Buy. I'd love to give a copy away to your listeners at the end of the show as well.
Okay.
One was on property management. I wrote two home study courses. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate and ethics in prison for 6 years. I was on an outreach program, went into the community, told my story 40 times to small business owners and college students. And then I befriended a professor from the University of Minnesota, and he and I co authored a paper together that we had published this year in the Business Journal of Ethics. Um, so I say, you know what? I have resilience and I bounce back, and I've always bounced back on my feet, right? Uh,
Hmm.
but through that loss and redemption, I hope people see the hope that's in there and can
Right.
grab hold of that for maybe something that's going on in somebody's own life.
Hmm. It reminds me of it. Things don't necessarily happen to you, but they happen for you. And
Exactly.
looking back on your story and looking back on all of the things that has happened to you, do you strongly believe that those things happened for you? And are you a better person today because of those things?
I am a better person today because of those things. And
Hmm.
I do believe that our story shapes us.
Mm.
And it's what we choose to do with that story that benefits other people
Hmm.
or
I
doesn't.
believe that as well too. So, I always tell people, I was like, stories are powerful. It's those stories that you tell that connects the dots, builds the bridge between the struggles, the adversity, the things that somebody else has experienced within their life, those hardships, those roadblocks, those things that would crush one person, but yet the other person had the mindset, the resilience to overcome all those things on your way to personal or professional success. And Mike, man, that's a truly powerful story. And what would have crushed one person really kind of made you stronger, made you bounce back even better. It gave you that knowledge and those skills, and more importantly, that experience that now you can share with others so that you can once again motivate, inspire, empower, and encourage others that if it's possible for you, it's also possible for them. And I love your resilience, man. Hats off to you, honestly.
Thank you. I appreciate it,
And,
Terry.
and and here's the thing. I strongly believe that it all starts within the mindset, because had you not had a strong mindset, I really think that it would have been a lot easier for you to just give up. It's over. This happened to me. I'm in prison. Wife wants to divorce, all these negative things. It would have really been easy for you to just give up and call it quits and be like, you know what? This is my life. This is my story, and I'm just going to take it for what it is. But you didn't do that. You bounced back, you took it as a lesson point, as a learning point, and it helped make you stronger. Now, I believe mindset is extremely important. And I also believe that you must lead yourself so that you can lead others. So during those tough times, you had to really lead yourself. You couldn't let yourself go. You couldn't let yourself really kind of fall trap into your situation or your circumstances. So here's my question: during that entire situation, as everything was happening, as it could have easily seemed like your life was falling apart, how did you maintain razor sharp focus to basically keep your life on track during those tough times?
All the podcasts I've been on, I don't think anybody's asked me that question, and
Mm,
I find that that's probably a core question,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Um, and I think there's two things. First of all, I just want to say that over the years, I have done all kinds of coaching and training. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development over the years,
mm,
and I know for a fact that somewhere in the back of my mind, something that Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, any one of those guys said somewhere along the line got me out of bed in the morning,
mm.
got me to the gym, got me, okay? But the thing that I have to really give credit to is my relationship with the Lord. I,
Yes.
if it wasn't for that for me, Terry, I would have died on the vine.
Mm,
And, you know, I pressed into that every day, to that relationship, to be held accountable to myself. To I that guy in the gym said to me, "Don't let those people beat you," and
mm-hmm.
I wasn't about to let anybody beat me.
Yeah.
I just wasn't. They could take everything from me, and they did. But you know,
And it's important to have belief in something either more or higher than yourself. So I like the fact that you said that you believe in the Lord, because I too, I also believe. And I mean, I'm not deeply rooted or connected. I mean, I do go to church. Of course, the last year and a half has been really tough, but I do believe. I do believe in something bigger and higher than myself. And but at the end of the day, I do believe in myself, and I do believe in others. And I think that being able to listen to that outside perspective, but not letting it affect you, I think is very essential. And that really kind of, you hit on a very key point here, and that's it's that core. It's really kind of the core of things. And for you, at the heart of Mike, what is your core?
I think it's tenacity.
Mm.
I learned work ethic early on from my dad. I learned work ethic early on. And there's a tenacity that goes along with that. I was probably in the real estate business 3 years, and I walk in this client's house, potential client,
Mm.
and he goes, "Man, Morawski, you are the most tenacious person I know." And I was like, "Thank you very much." I was very graceful about it. Said,
Uh-huh.
"Thank you very much." And I leave and I go right home. I grab a dictionary, Terry. I look it up and I go, "That is me. I
Yeah.
am just like that. I follow up. I'm consistent. I don't quit. I don't take no for an answer." I think you have to be tenacious. Listen, to sell 125 listings a year, what are you willing to do as a real estate agent? Well, I was willing to pick up the phone and dial the telephone 20,000 times to
Mhm.
set 360 appointments. You know what? You have to be willing to do what most people aren't willing to do.
Yes.
And I have to make this one last comment. You and I talked a little bit before the show about John Maxwell and his books, and
Mhm.
you know, um, listen, he's very Christian, and he conveys that message through his you know his speaking and his books and all of that. But so was Zig, and so was Jim Rohn, and there's a couple other guys that you know. So I think that there's something about that that goes along with that, and you alluded to that too. And so,
I like that. Tenacity is something that a lot of people don't have because, we're kind of in a world today where, I mean, bottom line up front, there's a lot of things that are just handed to people these days, and they don't have that work ethic, and they don't have that desire, they don't have that want or that need, that you and I grew up with, because believe me, I'm highly competitive. You will not match my energy, but when I lay into it, I will crush you. And that's kind of my mentality on some things. And I've had some people that will tell me, Terry, you're too aggressive. No, I'm not. I do what I do, and you will not be able to match it, because it's because of what I do that has gotten me to where I am. You talk about making those phone calls, doing those actions. That's a part of one of my books. I'm in the process of rewriting this. So I wrote a book called Leadership Solved, and I talked about the 5 rights. And one of those rights was right action. And that is the one thing that we can control outside of our attitude, is attitude and actions. And I think they both kind of work hand in hand. And when you have that positive action, you can take that positive action. Even when you have a negative attitude, you can still take positive action. You still are in charge of that. You are still in control of that. And that's the one thing, no matter what anybody thinks, no matter what they say, they cannot take that away from you. You own that.
yeah, I couldn't have said it better, Terry. You
Mm-hmm.
nailed that.
And that's the thing. A lot of people will judge. And here, I really want to make a point on this right here. A lot of people will judge you from a place of their weakness
Hmm.
because they do not understand your strength.
Yeah.
And I've twisted that quote many different ways. People will also judge you from a place of ignorance when they do not understand your wisdom.
Yeah.
So think about that. I've really modified that particular quote many different ways. And it kind of leads me into this next thing. So you talk about metrics within your coaching, your training, when you talk to your clients. So let's talk about metrics just a little bit. And you have a few of them here, which is standard, strategies, acquisition, execution, and management. And I really believe that they all work hand in hand. They work really congruently in order to do what it is that you do. So let's talk about that a little bit. Standard, strategies, acquisition, execution, and management.
It's funny you bring this up because yesterday I wrote a quote down. I had a coaching call with a client. I got off that and I wrote a quote down. It said, "We have to start thinking more like business people,"
Mm.
right? I think too many entrepreneurs are technicians in their business,
Mm-hmm.
and they work in their business versus on their business.
Mm-hmm.
And all those words that you just mentioned are great words, but unless you do them, unless you have them put in place, they're worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're only as worthful as the effort you put behind them. Worthful is that. I know you were struggling with some words.
Worthwhile.
Yeah, you were struggling with some words earlier. Now I am. So
Yeah, no, let's create some new words.
yeah,
We'll be in the next dictionary with those things.
Yeah, now it's going to be Webster's, Thompson, and Morawski.
That's awesome. But, I grew up in the South, so believe me, I have thrown some words out there that I had to do a double take on. Like, did I just say that? Yes, I did.
So here, let me just tell a quick story. Maybe this kind of brings some light to what you were saying. So I'm in the real estate. I go in the apartment business, and I don't know anything.
Mhm.
And I mean, I am as green can go. Here's what I knew: how to raise private equity,
Mhm.
and I didn't even know how to do that, right? But I understood the concept, and that was, from here to the other end of a football field was how I understood it.
Mhm.
So um, what I did was I went through the process. I just did it. I said, I'm going to do it. So I went and found a building, and I listened to what the seller said. Oh, you can raise rents. They're $75 a month low, and you can do these repairs and fix this and do this, and you'll be able to get a new tenant in there. And once you put a nice sign up and stripe the parking lot, I thought, he wouldn't lie to me. He wants to sell the building. He wants me to help me buy it. He wants me to be successful. He's not going to lie to me.
Mhm.
Well, he didn't tell me anything that was true. Not a word. And so what I did was, after I closed on that deal, and now I became a don't wanter. I wanted to sell the building.
Mhm.
I went to my broker and I said, Ryan, I said, we can't do this. We have to build a strategy. So he and I sat down for probably 4 hours, and we started to pencil out a strategy. And it was, hey, what did I want to pull up in front of? What did I want something to look like? 2 stories, 3 stories, pitched roofs, asphalt shingles, some brick on the outside, cedar siding, nice window trims. I wanted to pull in a parking lot and see all blinds, not Confederate flags or beach towels. I wanted to see, consistency in it. I wanted, 1.5 parking spots for each apartment for cars. And so I started to build this model, right? And I built this model, and then I said, okay, so what does my household income have to be now? And what does the job growth in the area have to be? And what's the migration growth have to be? All of these things that I put into an underwriting model. Hey, it's like the first time I underwrote something, I did it by hand, Terry. I wrote all the numbers out longhand because I didn't have a tool. I
Uh-huh.
didn't know any different. Nobody taught me. I learned that by myself. But then I met some great people who said, man, here's how you do it. Success leaves clues.
Mhm.
So I followed some successful people again, and I just pulled it together. So those systems and those strategies, put them together. If you can cut your learning curve by learning from somebody else who's successful before you, and by just doing it,
Mhm.
go do it and learn along the way. Stop letting fear hold you back.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like my mentor. So my mentor is Evan Carmichael, and he says if you want to soar, get a mentor because somebody else has been there, done that before you, and they can really kind of cut the path between failure and success. They can really kind of cut that in half or help get you there faster. And I believe having that mentor to guide you along the way, to coach you along the way, not necessarily do everything for you, but to give you little clues because you say success leaves clues, and I strongly believe that. But I also believe something, and I'm going to tuck this in there nicely as well too, and it's a great thing that Les Brown said. You must be willing to do today what others won't do so that you can have tomorrow what others will not have.
That's right.
And it's very important. And I think that in order to do that, you must have that strategy. You must clearly outline what it is that you want to do. And I love that you talk about strategy because a lot of people, believe it or not, they don't have a strategy. They're throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing what sticks, throwing spaghetti on a wall, seeing what sticks. And then at the end of the day, you know what they're left with? They're left with a mess to clean up with no clearly defined strategy. I like that you talk about standards because you must have standards in order to provide clarity. Otherwise, you'll be once again all over the place. And when you have that standard, you have a target, a goal, something that you can strive for, you can try to achieve. And when you take proper execution on all of that together, that's where it becomes powerful. And it's up to you to manage all of that.
So
So,
it,
go ahead.
listen, people should have a standard every day just to brush their teeth.
Yes.
People should have a standard every day. Make your bed. Get
Mm-hmm.
up and make your bed because now you've accomplished something today. Listen, if that's my standard and I hit it, I hit a goal for the day, right? So now you build on that. So you should have a standard to um, pick up the telephone and call somebody outside your box, outside your network, somebody who you wouldn't generally call. Stretch yourself every day. That's how we grow.
You know that you will never grow if you're not willing to stretch.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to take action every single day. So tell me a little bit about clearly defining intentions, because I believe that intentions are very important. And if you don't really set no intention, you really don't have a target to really kind of strive towards. So talk to me a little bit about setting intentions.
Yeah. Uh, you know, who was it? Horatio Alger said that a man without a plan is like a ship without a rudder. Um, and that's what your intentions are, right?
Uh,
You get up in the morning and go, well, oh, I think I'm going to just have a great day today. Well, what does that mean? How are you going to have that great day? So I did a post this morning actually that you need to know your intentions, right?
mhm,
So what are you going to do? Here's what I know. Tomorrow I need to do what's in my schedule because I already have some pre-planned things. But
mhm,
outside of that, I also know that I need to work on this specific project and I need to take it to the next milestone. A little bit of writing I'm doing. And then the next piece is that I need to call, 20 people tomorrow.
mhm,
Okay. So until I get that, that's my intention for the day. That's my standard for my day, right?
mhm.
I think that you have to, and call it goals, call it, whatever, but it's your intentions. How can you be intentional today to achieve your goal for tomorrow?
Mhm. Yeah, I believe in that as well too. And if you don't take those actions, if you don't set those intentions, that really means the difference between success and failure. So when we talk about cash flow, we talk about wealth. I really believe that when you set intentions and you take appropriate action, it will generate some cash flow. And you really need that cash flow in order to do different things. Because I know myself, I understand my relationship to money, and my relationship to money is different than what other people's relationship to money is. I got into a conversation with someone the other day and it was like, oh, I need money because I want to buy a Lamborghini, I want to buy a mansion, I want to buy this. I was like, you don't understand your relationship to money there, guy. And you really kind of need to take a little bit deeper dive than those superficial things that you want, because I also believe wants, needs, and desires. So let's talk about cash flow and long-term wealth, because I really kind of believe that they work a little bit hand in hand, but there's some differences. So what are your thoughts on cash flow versus, or short-term cash flow versus long-term wealth?
So I'm going to talk about it in the context of real estate, of real estate, of multifamily real estate
Mhm,
specifically. Okay. And I know it's the same thing when you get into bonds and stocks and other alternative investments as well. But most people trade time for dollars.
mhm,
So we go to work, we punch a clock at the end of the year. My dad used to say, hey, you can work 40 years, 40 hours a week, and at the end they'll give you a $40 watch,
mhm.
or you can go do something productive.
Right.
Now, and that always kind of stuck with me, right? He said, if you ever go into business for yourself, go into your business selling food, shelter, or clothing, and shelter's never failed.
Mhm,
It's had some dips, but so's everything else. So here's what the cash flow piece looks like. I like multifamily real estate. I think today is an unprecedented time in history. Now is the time to get involved, whether you're a passive investor or whether you're an active investor. And you need to learn both sides of that and what that means. But cash flow is created by what value you bring to a piece of real estate.
mhm,
So, can I come to a piece of real estate with existing cash flow, operate it like a business at a standard and metrics that operate better than what the old owner did?
mhm,
What value can I bring to the marketplace? So I have to look at what markets I want to be in. I have to look at the systems in those markets, the job growth, the economic growth, you know, and what my rent growth is going to be. All of
mhm.
these things have to come into play because I want to increase my cash flow. I want to increase my investors' cash flow. along the way.
Mm-hmm.
By increasing cash flow, I create more wealth. See,
Mm-hmm.
there's a drop down metric that happens called net operating income.
Mm-hmm.
If I create more revenue and my expenses are less, it increases my NOI, my net operating income. When that increases, the value of the property generally goes up. There's where my long-term wealth sits. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a saying in real estate that says you make money when you buy the deal, and it's true, but you don't realize that gain till you get out.
Right.
That's why I wrote the book Exit Plan. But I tell that because it's really important to know where and how and when to maximize your profit.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that. That's where that wealth comes in. You
Okay.
know, listen, I subscribe to this. Before you buy a car, go buy two pieces of investment real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Before you buy the house that you move into, go buy a piece of investment real estate. Before you upgrade your car, make sure you've got enough cash flow to pay for the new car.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you need to do to get out of the rat race, stay out of the rat race, and create a future for yourself that most people only dream of?
Mm-hmm. And that falls in line with a little bit of what Grant Cardone talks about, because he talks about, assets and this, that, and the other. And you need to be able to, he talks about, having the ability to pay for something three times or, more before you actually buy into it. And one of the things and I've heard this too, this is kind of a, I don't know, this is kind of a myth over time or over the years. And I've really kind of noticed certain things where when you buy stuff, it tends to go down in value, or like automobiles, for example. I've been told that when you buy an automobile, the moment that you purchase it, it goes down in value. But when you purchase a house, it increases in value. So let's talk about that right there. Let's kind of debunk or demystify this whole, overinflated prices, value, devalue once you purchase something.
So, is there a specific question in there, Terry? I listen. I subscribe right now to the fact that I think the market is overinflated.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people that don't think that, and there's a lot of people that think we have a 3 to 7 year run left in this.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I wonder. See, I got stung really bad in 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, how many times do you have to tell your kid not to touch the hot stove to not get burned,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, for me, for what I went through once, that's all I want to know. But does that mean that I shouldn't do something? No, absolutely not. It just means I need to be more conservative today. It
Right.
means still move. Go ahead.
So here's what I've noticed. So within the last year and a half, the market's been really kind of crazy in the last year and a half because of everything that's been going on. But here's what I've noticed. I've noticed in some areas that are starting to grow, like Nashville, Tennessee, for example, houses in Nashville are starting to increase in value. Like a house that would be, I don't know, $500,000 or selling for $600,000 and $700,000. Once again, it goes into that over inflation. Do you think that maybe the market is trying to correct because of the last year and a half, or do you think that they're overinflating, or do you think that they're preparing for something else?
Uh, well, you got to ask yourself who's preparing for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that there's stuff going on behind the scenes we don't know about.
Right.
There's strings being pulled here and there, and I really believe that the market, there's going to be a shift. We're going to see inflation. That's why I said now's the time. This is an unprecedented time. We've never seen this before. When was the last time you saw a bull run like this for this long?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Normally, a bull run hits a dead stop,
Yeah.
and corrects. Well, we haven't seen that correction. We're going to see rising interest rates. And when we start to see interest rates creeping up, and you know what, Terry, they might get to 4%, but it's still going to be historically low, but it's still creeping up, and
Yeah.
it's going to cause inflation. And, the thing that I see as an issue in the market today is all the money that's been printed.
Mm.
And Terry, this is probably a conversation for another podcast.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah,
and I'm
because Yeah, that's a whole different topic right there about printing money and this, that, and the other.
I am not an economist, and I don't get it because it just doesn't make sense today.
Yeah, because the more you put out there, the less value that it has because there's just too much of it in flow,
Right.
and
So
that might be driving the market as well too. Who knows?
so here's a new word for you. I and you might know this one, but I listened to a guy the other day on a podcast. He's a demographer,
Mm,
and he talked about the migrations and the demographics of people, right? And
hmm
if you look today, the boomers, the baby boomers, who my generation, right? People are still turning 65 at a rate of 10,000 per day for the next 5 years right now.
hmm
Okay. Then right behind them, you've got the Generation Xers, right? That are another large group of demographic people who are changing their lifestyle today. So that lifestyle change, that migration to different places is causing pricing to increase.
hmm
Nashville just happens to be one of those nicer places that people are migrating to. But if
Yeah.
you look at cities like Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin and Atlanta and Charlotte and um, um, Tampa, South Central Florida, these are places that the migration is getting huge.
hmm Do you think that big tech is driving a lot of that? I've seen some opportunities within big tech in some of these big cities, and I think that could be a driving factor as well too.
I think you're going to see a lot more migration because people can work remotely
Hmm
today, where it's become more acceptable today.
Yeah.
Starting to have become more acceptable before the pandemic, and then the pandemic kind of really fueled it because people, employers had to get their arms around it. So, um, big tech, yeah, technology keeps changing. It's changing at a rate that I certainly can't keep up with.
Yeah, I struggle with it as well too. And that kind of leads me into challenges because as entrepreneurs, as just people in general, during challenging times, it really kind of calls for increased action, or maybe it takes someone to take a step back and just observe. So let me ask you something. What is the most challenging problem that you've had to solve, and how did you solve it?
Hmm. Well, my most challenging problem was what I was going to do to re-engineer my life coming out of prison.
Mm,
I think that that's been the biggest challenging problem in my whole life. I mean, I've lost money before on bad deals, and deals have gone upside down, but never have I had a company of that size. We were
mm,
a $75 million company. Never did I have a company of that size turn upside down. Um, so because I went to prison and lost everything and came out with nothing,
mm,
$300 I came home with. Um, that that's been the biggest challenge of my life.
mm.
How
Would
do
you also say that that was your most embarrassing moment?
Yeah, I guess you could say I was embarrassed about my actions and what I did that caused me to go to prison. Absolutely, that's a embarrassing moment.
Hmm Okay. So I always have to ask everybody the stadium question. There you are. You're in a stadium, you're filled with thousands of people watching, and all eyes are on you. How do you reach that person that's back in the nosebleed section to inspire them to take action or do something that you're trying to motivate them to do?
Yeah. So, what in your life is most important to you? What is the thing in your life, Terry, the guy up in the nosebleed section,
Mhm.
that is most important to you? Because right now you might be sitting there bored. This
Mhm.
might not make any sense to you. You might be thinking, I'm an idiot for what I did and going to prison.
Mhm.
Um, but what in your life is most important to you? What's your driving factor, your driving force? What will take you tomorrow morning from point A to point B? if you don't have clarity on that, if you're not crystal clear on what drives you, what excites you, what you're passionate about, you'll sit in those nosebleed seats always.
Mm. That's interesting. So when I always ask that question, I always think of it like the person that's far away. And I like that you kind of touched on, bored, because a lot of times when you're in that nosebleed section, far away, you don't really feel as connected to what's really kind of going on right there within the stage, because I've been there. I've been right there in the front row staring up at, at like someone who I'm just in awe of. And I've also been back there in the back. So I've experienced that from two different perspectives. And I often think about that person back there in the back that just might be just there, but they also paid to be a part of that particular event, or maybe it was free or what have you. And I always try to figure out a way, how can I project my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions to that person sitting back there in the back. So it's always an interesting concept, and it's always kind of interesting to hear different people's perspective with that. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to that, or no?
Yeah, I guess you said a couple things here that just made me think a little bit about um, what's up, what's up in that guy's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know when you meet somebody uh, what's going on in their life.
Mm.
They might have a spouse that's in the hospital sick with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
They might have somebody who's just passed away. They might have lost their job or their medical insurance. You don't know what happened in somebody else's life. So we have to come from a place of empathy and caring to help them tap into what's important. How do we get out of there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of my best friends slept under a water tower for a year
Wow.
because he was homeless. After having riches and riches, lost everything. So people are resilient and people can come back.
Mm. I believe in that as well too. So, Mike, thank you very much for sharing your valuable knowledge, your experience, your wisdom. If you had one golden nugget, the most important thing that you could really kind of share with somebody out there that is listening to really kind of change their mind, change their life, what would that one golden nugget be?
Yeah, we mentioned it before and I'm going to mention it again. It's tenacity.
Mm.
It's never taking no for an answer. I had a saying when I was listing real estate. I said, I follow up till they list or they die.
Mm.
And that's how I approach my business, right? So I do everything I possibly can to move the ball forward every day and help to encourage other people to do the same in their own business. But it's tenacity.
Mhm. Awesome. I believe in that as well too. I think you must have the energy, the drive, determination, tenacity, whatever word that you want to put on that, whatever works best for you. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it still comes down to mindset, attitude, and action. Mike, once again, thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom. So share with us, what are you currently working on, and how can anyone that wants to learn more from you get connected directly with you?
Yeah, thanks. And Terry, I just want to say really quick, I'm honored that you had me on as a guest.
Mm.
I
Thank you very much.
appreciate you, and I've really grown to have an admiration for you over the last few months, and I appreciate that. And I'm really honored that you had me on.
Mm.
Um, so here's what I have going on. In the short run, first of all, if anybody wants to go grab my book, Exit Plan, go grab it. It's you can go to my website, mycoreintentions.com/exit plan, download a free copy. If you want to go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble, you can buy it there, but you can go download a free copy. And I always tell people, listen, I just had somebody say, oh my God, I printed this. It's 260 pages. I said, it's a book. So it's not a little ebook. So it's a book and it'll walk you through the multifamily investing process. Um, the next thing is I have a live 3-day event coming up in Schaumburg, suburb of Chicago. That's coming up October 14th through the 16th. It's a 3-day deep dive into multifamily investing. What I've learned over the years, I take my 30 years of knowledge and experience and expertise and put it on a platform for you to learn and go out and do business. And I'll hold your hand doing that business if you want me to. So I'll help hold you accountable and keep you intact. You can find me wherever you hang out on social media. I hang out too. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I love Instagram and LinkedIn the best. YouTube, and I ask, please subscribe to me, like my stuff, whether it's personal or whether it's my core intentions, my business, both platforms. And if you want to get a hold of me, if you have questions, if you need anything, if I can, help you in any way, my direct messaging message is mike@mycoreintentions.com. So you get right to me.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom. And once again, if you want to get directly connected with Mike, head on over to his website, mycoreintentions.com. All the details are right over there. Mike, thank you very much. And until then, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Terry. Blessings.